Hello, everybody. How you doing? Hello, Glenn.
Ted.
Uh, we are the Truth Mongers. I am Ted Davies,
And I'm Glenn Fleming.
and we are not we're not professional people looking at.
No, we're just sort of open-minded people who don't just take the first thing that we've been told. We like to find out and make our own minds up. And not that we disbelieve people, but there's a lot of stuff in this world that seems to be a bit, what's the word, obfuscated,
Yeah,
and a bit,
questionable. Yeah,
yeah,
questionable.
a bit smoke and mirrors, and that's probably all by design as well to keep everybody guessing. But there are certain things in there that
Right.
we like to talk about. And like you say, we're not professionals. We
No.
don't have all the answers. We just want an enjoyable, open chat about these things.
Right. We're just trying to have a common sense approach to
Yeah.
some major things that have been brought to light and in our existence and what we do.
Yeah.
So first off, I want to say, like I said, welcome everybody. We'll get to your comments in a minute. Let's get some of the bills paid, and we'll talk about what's in the coffee cup tonight. Indian River Roasting Company is what I'm drinking tonight. So let's find out a little bit about them, and be right back. Here at Ted Davies Artistry, we take coffee seriously, and so does our sponsor, Indian River Roasting Company. It's fair trade, organic, and they're artisans just like me. The only difference is I use watercolor and ink and they use coffee beans. And I enjoy it all through my day. So do yourself a favor, go to the description when you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Find Indian River Roasting Company's website. Use the promo code CaffeinateTed2021 and save 10% on your purchase. Yeah, so use that CaffeinateTed2021 promo code. Laugh it up, man.
Listen, I've told you, I only drink coffee when I'm in the United States.
I know.
And I've not been for a while. And
I know. You're going to come over, and we're going to get you some of that coffee, and we're going to get you caffeinated.
Well, don't forget that apparently this week, Mr. Biden says I can come and see you this week. So
you can. So just book it, and we'll do it. Yeah. We'll do it.
I've had 59 jabs now. I've had more jabs than the entire UK, so I should be clear.
Yeah, jabs, for those people who don't know what jabs are in the States, vaccinations.
Vaccinations, yeah. You call them jabs.
But you can, you can be, if you got, you want to slang it up.
I'm looking forward to drinking some more American coffee.
Yeah.
If you have do you have American coffee, or is it from South America?
That is, well, it's all brought in, and then it's roasted.
You see, you've got nothing of your own.
So we're having problems tonight. Facebook is not showing up any of our stuff. YouTube's the only one.
I wonder why.
They must know what we're talking about tonight. So if you guys are on Facebook or anything else, or anybody else is listening that's on YouTube on this show, if you could just let the people know, that would be awesome. But I don't, this is what happens. We didn't tell everybody what we're going to be talking about yet, but we will when we get back. So we're going to talk about Cashman's Comics. We'll be right back. Pay a couple bills here.
And every day I wake up feeling the same way now. Need to find something to believe. Every night the dreams we make, they're haunting my head now.
Yeah, check out everything John's doing at Cashman's Comics in Bay City, Michigan. Of course, when Glenn gets here, we're going to go meet Petey the dog. Best guard dog in Comicsville. So check out everything that they're doing. He ships nationwide, and tell him that Ted Talks or the Truth Mongers sent you, and you should be good. Okay. Also, speaking of Glenn B. Fleming, we've got Comics Unlimited sponsor of the show, which is great. We got a lot of things changing up here for the next year, but it is awesome. I'm looking forward to the next issue that's coming out. It's going to know I know somebody's going to be in it. It's got a really cool cover. So
Yeah, it
check
should
out
be out in a week or so. Number 8. It's been a bit delayed, but we're back on track again now.
sounds good. And you can find that on Amazon or Glenn B. Fleming,
Yeah,
Comics Unlimited, right?
yeah. Along with the rest of it, all the series and everything there, and all my stuff as well. Just as a
Awesome.
quick plug.
Awesome. And then, never a dull moment with Glenn. We also want to talk about one of the coolest sponsors we've got. Of course, all of them are cool, but definitely Damien from O Toys. So let's see what he does. Yeah, Damien's awesome. Check out everything that he's doing with his resin sculptures. He does all my I guess all of my figures and that for Ted Davies Archery. I know he's working on something for you too, Glenn. And,
Yeah, hopefully in the future. Yeah. Well, not
yeah.
well. He will be doing. Yeah, he will be
Yeah,
doing.
absolutely. Just amazing technology. What he can do. Really a great talent.
Does he, just as an aside, does he provide produce the holders? You know, the plastic stuff that it's the figurines in.
A few, the ones that we ordered for the figure for Grimm, actually we bought from a separate supplier because we got a really good deal on it. But yeah, he can. And there's a few things that he does proprietarily. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We're also proud affiliates to Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Check out everything we're doing 7 days a week. We're a group of creatives that help creatives build their business. So check out everything we're doing there. We've got a lot going on this week. Tomorrow we've got the cigar show. It's already a month again. So we're going to be doing the Thanksgiving days, kind of a holiday shopping cigar show. It's going to be a little bit different. That's 11 a.m. tomorrow. And on Friday, Drinking with the Davies is going to have a tequila sunrise that my wife's making. So it should be really good. I'm looking forward to that. And of course, at 5 p.m. on Friday, it's going to be our second installment to the From the Trenches of Hollywood. So it's really this one's it's about it's really good. It's about the process of writing, of how Craig handles a few things and how I do it, and it's getting more interesting now as we're going into the podcast. We're going to be having a really an amazing guest coming in soon too on that podcast. That's and I'm not going to give it away, but they're a New York Times bestseller, so it should be a really good, really good, captivating show. So let's say hi to everybody real quick. Of course, we're going to be talking about Majestic 12 tonight. The very interesting subject of that. It's a scary subject. I've been doing a lot of deep diving on it, and it is an interesting thing. But I want to say first to all of our good friends here, Donna and Carl and Paul. Yeah. And it looks like Dan's here. Wow, man. Thanks, Dan, for sharing. Yeah. Wow.
Hi,
good
Paul,
deal.
Donna, Carl.
Yep. So that's good. I apologize for everybody on Facebook, man. We're just not being shown there. It's not, I guess it might be the topic that we're discussing tonight. We're already getting railed. Looks like. So Majestic 12, man, you've got an extensive background in research with this type of thing, but also with JFK. There's a lot of affiliations with Majestic 12 in that. I don't know if we'll go down that rabbit hole a bit. We're only going to be on probably about an hour-ish, hour and a half maybe tonight. Probably be getting out here by 8:30 because Russ Allen was good enough to want me on his broadcast tonight to raise some funds. So we close out Grimm with funding tonight. So everybody tune into Russell Allen tonight. But as far as MJ12, it does exist. There's been people that have tried to denounce it for decades, and for whatever reason, it exists.
Yeah, the interesting thing I found, or knew about, but researched again today, was that they didn't seem to come to. I thought it was earlier than I thought. I knew about this earlier than this, but I'm probably wrong. It was only sort of made public in 1984, around that time.
Yeah,
I thought it was known before that. Maybe I knew about it before that. I don't know.
Maybe.
But the FBI, the FBI looked into it and said it's a complete hoax.
Of course they did. What are they supposed to say?
Of course, yeah. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to note that it was formed around the same time as Roswell, and possibly for that. and 12 members of the government, and U.S. Army generals and military people, Navy, and all that were
Right.
on that, which is the Majestic 12. And but I also found that, or knew before today, that it could apply to a level of intelligence acquisition, if that's the right word, and that the president doesn't have MJ12 clearance
Yeah.
because he would need plausible denial for certain things.
Right.
I don't know what level he would have, and I don't know whether it goes any higher than 12. But it's interesting, like I said at the start, that it all seems to start around 1947 with Truman, with the Roswell and Truman initiating these things, and then the Central Intelligence Group, and then the CIA getting involved. And it's always the same people. It's like the JFK thing you said. The people who were involved around JFK and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King and those people, it's always the same people who seem to be either at the event or in the background somewhere. And I'm not saying the MJ12 were involved in those, but the same kind of people from the mafia and people like that. They're always, we can go into on another show, but the same individuals seem to be there. Yeah, same players. Yeah, that's the good way of putting it. Yeah.
I mean, that's and I think that the Majestic 12 were set up, at least in my thought pattern, they were set up after the crash in Roswell, which is very suiting. We're very suiting to what we talked about last week. If you have guys didn't see it, check out what our discussion was about Roswell and the crash, and everything that revolves around it. They were these men were established as a filtering system, essentially. I mean this is how it all was mandated, and I think that Eisenhower, I think he might have been concerned about it when he left office, even though he set this thing afoot. Can we bring up the picture of those guys? Do you mind, since we're talking about them?
Do it, yeah.
All right. So who's the person that you don't have on the list here?
He's a guy called Lloyd Berkner. He's a physicist and an engineer, and there's not really a great deal about him other than I couldn't find the photograph of him. But all these guys are basically from military intelligence, or at least the military industrial complex that Eisenhower talks about in his farewell speech in 1961. And it's like we said before, it's the same players, but these people are locked into different things. Like the guy in the center, in the middle of the center, well, the second from the top, I should say, the one with the suit on looking at you. They've all got suits on. The guy that's James Forrestal, and he committed suicide in 1949.
Interesting.
The story goes he jumped from a 16th floor window in the Bethesda Naval Base in Washington. He was undergoing sort of a psychiatric treatment because he was very depressed and all this kind of thing. But there is a story going around that he was part of the first MK Ultra testings, and they were using LSD on him and things like that. Now I don't know whether that's true or not. That's what I've heard. But it's all he killed himself in 1949. I don't know how old he was. He wasn't that old. Wow. He was probably in his 50s. I don't know. But he seemed to be at the heart of all this Roswell stuff as well. A lot of stuff going on. And what was if MK Ultra was involved? I don't know. But it's all very mysterious that all these people are really, really deeply seated in intelligence from the war.
Well, they call it the dark. They call it the dark state, right? The dark state for a reason. So, well,
Forrestal, the guy who killed himself, was a Secretary of Defense. He was vehemently anti-communist, and he wanted. He was when they were starting to get into the what would become NASA and things like that. He was very involved in all that kind of stuff, and he seems to be right at the forefront of even MJ12, even though he was only in it for 2 years. So there's a lot of really deep stuff going on.
So do you know the names of everybody on here and what their capacities were?
Yeah, there's Detlev Bronk. He's a scientist. He's a biophysicist. Vannevar Bush.
Any relation?
No relation. He was an engineer and inventor a science administrator, and he made his name working on the first analog computers in the late 40s. You've got Forrestal, you've got Gordon Gray, who was an attorney in Truman's office. You've got Roscoe Hillencotter. He was the director of Central Intelligence Group and the first director of the Central Intelligence Agency. You've got Jerome Hunsaker. He was in the Navy. He was a pilot and engineer. You've got Donald Menzel of the US Navy. He was an astronomer, an astrophysicist, and he actually discovered the atmosphere around Mars and worked out the chemistry of stars. So whatever that is. Wow. You've got Robert Montague. He was a lieutenant general in the United States Army. And you've got a guy called Sidney, I think it's Suez, I think you pronounce his name. He's a rear admiral. He was the first director of Central Intelligence, and he was in charge of the Central Intelligence Group, and then the CIA came after them. And you've got this Nathan Twining or Twinning guy. He was an artist.
He's a point of interest I want to talk about.
He was an Air Force 4-star general, and he oversaw the early stages of the American space race. And I think he resigned just before Sputnik or just after Sputnik.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but he was very involved in the what became NASA.
Now, any of these are associated with the Nazi Party at all, or no? These are not.
Not as far as I can find. You've got Hoyt Vandenberg, who was Vandenberg Air Force Base is named after. He was the second director of Central Intelligence. He was an Air Force general. That's the last one. But just to make clear, Central Intelligence is not Central Intelligence Agency. You've got Central Intelligence, then you have Central Intelligence Group, and then you have Central Intelligence Agency. But they're all like George Bush, the president, senior, Herbert Walker, is it?
Yeah.
He very, very deeply entrenched in intelligence. There's a lot going on, and if you think of people like James Jesus Angleton was involved in the anti-communist thing.
Yep. Well, he was quite a participant in this whole mess too.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a big time.
He's everywhere.
Angleton. And he was with JFK. He was very much, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. I think
he was one of Dulles' people. You know, Alan Dulles, who was head of the CIA in the late 50s and was sacked by Kennedy, sacked by Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs, and then served on the Warren Commission to look into Kennedy's death. So that's another. That's
a whole. We'll get to that in a minute. On. So Dan was saying that the rumor has the suicide was assisted. Through the window.
Back in the 90s, I produced this undercover magazine.
Hold on one sec. Get that up there. Okay.
With this kind of stuff in it. Yeah.
Well,
there's a guy, a ufologist called Armin Victorian. He wrote me an article about MK Ultra. This is 1993. I produced this magazine.
Wow.
And there's Forrestal. And he talks about him, and he talks about his unfortunate accident at Bethesda. Yeah. Whether it's related or not, who knows? But it's there's a lot of strange stuff going on in the intelligence community at that time, as there probably is now, but nobody seems to report anything these days.
Right. Well, I mean, we question things now. You didn't do that back in the day. You followed authority. You followed the rule. I mean, that's why I mean, we went through this already repeatedly on other shows, but it's a directive that, it's obvious there's some type of misdirection or whatever from the truth. So MJ12 was set up though to be kind of that, keep it down, keep the sound down about the UFO, the Foo Fighters, everything, right? They were, it was by design. Yeah.
But you get lots of misinformation. Like, I think it's that Twining guy was, is it Twining? Would you pronounce it Twining? There was a memo sent to him from Robert Cutler, who was one of Truman's aides, and then we find out that Cutler was out of the country when that memo was sent, and that the signature, the president's signature, was pasted on, and all this. You know, it's all smoke and mirrors. You know, it's you can understand why Angleton was supposedly one of the most paranoid people who ever walked the earth. You can understand why, can't you?
Absolutely.
The guy must have been going out of his mind, you know.
I mean, you know, let's fast forward a bit, because I want to get into the nitty gritty with JFK, and because your background with your book about JFK's assassination, and that fascinates me anyway. But really, when you're thinking about what he would. I mean, from what I was reading and what I was understanding, JFK really wanted, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, as far as the president knowing what he's supposed to know and what he's not, you know, and maybe not knowing what he's not supposed to know. And JFK he was stretching that envelope a bit, and he was getting a lot of people's feathers ruffled.
He was getting everybody's feathers ruffled.
And this is he did a memo November. 2 weeks before he died, he sent a memo out, a letter. He was trying to get the Russian, he was trying to collaborate to get to the point where we could build a rocket system, whatever. He was going to release certain secrets of our government to. He wanted
the Soviets, as it was then, he wanted the Soviets to and NASA to have a joint moon program.
Yeah,
I think what he was doing there was saving money, but the most important thing of the Kennedy administration was it's called National Security Memorandum 263 or 273.
Yeah,
and that was ordering all military advisors out of Vietnam by Christmas 1965.
Okay.
When he was killed on the Friday, on the Monday, Lyndon Johnson issued. National Security Memorandum 263 said all U.S. military advisors out of Vietnam by December 1965. 3 days after he died, on the Monday, Lyndon Johnson wrote National Security Memorandum 273, sending 5,000 troops by the end of the week.
Yeah. Well, there's the military complex. There you go.
Yeah, but I'm not a military person, but I can't imagine it takes. I would imagine it takes more than a week to mobilize 5,000 troops
back then, especially. Yeah.
You know.
So Sarah just came in. Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
Hi, Sarah.
The thing with Kennedy being there's a lot of things, you know, as far as him as a role model is one thing, but I mean, him as a president was one thing too. But the way that he was, the Cuban Missile Crisis almost got us into a nuclear mess.
Yeah.
And I think that he was probably trying to never do that again. And he was trying to maybe bring these, so it smoothed out relations. I mean, there were secret meetings with Russia, right? From JFK, they've come out since.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that he was trying to smooth that over. I don't know. I mean, I think you know.
If you look into it, the conclusion I came to, let's put it that way. I read a lot about it. The conclusion from that time, and the planet nearly dissolved. You know, we nearly died, and Kennedy was a reluctant president. It was his father who wanted him to be president because you know, he messed up in the war by saying the United States should side with Hitler and all that kind of thing. So that ruined his political thing. So then he wanted Patrick to be president, the oldest son. He was killed in the war. Yep. Then the mantle fell to JFK. JFK wanted to be a writer, a historian, right? Yeah. Anyway, so he ends up in the White House. And I think what he saw, and this is my thought, what he saw, Kennedy, when he got into the White House, was all the politics bullshit.
Yeah.
And Khrushchev was the same in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And I think it was the military people who were pressing to press buttons to launch this war from both sides. But Kennedy was calm and wouldn't go along with it.
Yeah.
And Khrushchev was the same with his military people because who wins? Nobody wins.
Nobody wins. You're done. You're Russian roulette. I mean,
Let me tell you.
the way.
Let me tell you a fascinating little story about the Cuban Missile Crisis,
Mhm.
because JFK could only trust RFK because it was his brother and he trusted
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
There was a point where they couldn't trust the communications, telephone, telex, or whatever the communication was at the time, and they needed Robert Kennedy needed to tell Khrushchev something, and Robert Kennedy walked down from the White House to the Russian embassy in the
Yeah.
in the street and walked down to deliver the message
Yeah.
to the Russian embassy. They didn't trust the telephone. He walked down the street, Pennsylvania Avenue, I guess it is. He walked down that.
That's unbelievable.
He just went outside, and there's all the people there. He just walked down the street to deliver this message, and he got to the reception, and he sat in the reception. This woman was looking at him, thinking, "That Robert Kennedy, it can't be Robert Kennedy." You know, the Russian woman. So
Right.
anyway.
Sure.
So yeah,
You-
it was all inclusive.
You you look at it from a standpoint of when you're in it. This is kind of turning into the JFK show too, but from what I'm seeing, I can see this being, and we're talking about the paperwork too from Cutler, is it
Cutler.
Cutler? The Cutler wrote, and I mean these were burned documents, but they were found. So this is a document that's extremely important. This document puts a lot of things in perspective about JFK being a thorn in the side of
Yeah.
this Majestic 12 group. So
yeah, Kennedy was going to do a lot of things. He was banging down on organized crime. He was cutting the tax off the oil or making them pay more tax.
sure,
He was holding back the military from Vietnam.
Mhm.
He was treading on everybody's toes.
And then he wanted
and then he wanted détente with the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and I, the way he spoke about things too, in some of his speeches, it was like he knew a lot more about this full disclosure than the people wanted him to know. And he was going to tell people certain things. I think the general public, he wanted people to know what was going on.
And it's like I mean, history portrays him as being a totally reckless person, but I think
that's by design, right?
I think his recklessness was in his private life. You know, with what he was doing in his private life, that's it. That's where he was reckless. I don't think he was reckless in terms of government and policy, because he does that famous speech, and we're all mortal. Because he's got kids and all that kind of thing. He didn't want to die.
Yeah.
But you must remember also that the Bay of Pigs happened in his presidency, but it wasn't his gig. Was Richard Nixon set that up with Eisenhower.
Right.
Because it was thought at the time that Nixon would win the White House, and he didn't. Whichever way he didn't get in, he didn't get in. But Kennedy didn't give them air support. That's why it failed.
Interesting.
He didn't want the United States Air Force attacking Cuba.
Let me ask you this: with all your background and everything else, and we're just talking. This isn't making a statement that this is what happened. This is just my thoughts on it. Looking at all the evidence and everything else with Majestic 12, knowing that they are the dark state that they are, do you think that they were responsible or partially responsible for an assassination?
No, I never came across anything to do with MJ12 in my research on that. I've been looking at it for 30 years, 40 years, so I never came across that. No.
Interesting. I just wondered, it just, especially with the Cutler letter, with that Cutler.
Yeah,
interesting.
I was touching on it before about JFK being reckless.
Yeah.
And he may have been in his private life.
Sure.
But like I said, as a politician, as a president and a world leader and a policymaker, he wasn't that reckless that he was just going to reveal everything about Roswell, etc.
Yeah, right.
To the public, because that wouldn't be right. He wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, him as a Catholic, he probably had a problem with that too. He probably was advised not to do that. I mean, I'm just saying. I know
didn't stop him doing anything else, so I don't know.
No, it didn't. Right, right.
So that's I don't know about that. But I don't think he was. I think he was a person who got things done. so many politicians, they just go along with the ride, don't
Yeah.
they, and take the money off. He didn't need the money, did he? So
No.
anyway,
No, that's right. Sarah had a good point. She said Kennedy's pretty much became a cursed last name. Well, I don't
Yeah.
think that's necessarily. I mean, there was a lot of things with Ted Kennedy, you know, and the what was his girlfriend that died in the car wreck and all.
Mary Jo Kopechne,
Yeah, so they had all that. What was the lake? What was the name of the
Chappaquiddick.
Chappaquiddick, right? So they've got all that plus the brothers. You know, his other brother was shot and killed. You know, there's all these things, and it's almost like they've got it's not cursed. It sounds like they've got some things
Well,
that the
the
family,
reason-
you know, these people are not after the family, but it just seems kind of weird. It just seems really weird.
Without getting into the details, Robert Kennedy was killed so he wouldn't reopen the assassination of JFK.
Okay.
And Ted Kennedy was character assassinated because even the stupid public wouldn't take 3 Kennedy deaths within 7 years.
True.
As they'd start to smell a rat.
Yeah.
You know, because
Interesting.
in my research, I don't believe that Ted Kennedy was in that car with that girl.
Yeah. You see that's what I mean, though. It's a very deep well that we drink from right now, because there's a lot of people that when you're looking at it and to see the majority of that picture, the picture that we showed there, those men were all old. So the Majestic 12 could be a succession of people, different generations. It could still be going on.
It would have
to be.
So, well, that's why I think that Majestic 12 isn't so much 12 members. I think it's the level
of the
clearance level.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like anything else. It's like all governments. It's like life. We get replaced by the next generation.
Yeah.
And thing, you know, we have. I think the only only country in the world that's more secretive than the United States is Great Britain, because even from the war and Churchill's papers and things like that, we have rollover, and every 50 years it's decided should it be rolled over for 50 years, and nobody questions it, and these documents just keep getting rolled over.
Right.
So we're never going to know.
Sarah asked about the younger Kennedy who died in a plane crash. Right. So John.
John
he
Jr.,
was, he was set. I mean, he had a lot of things going on at the time. I mean, he was a very good publisher. He had a magazine out. He was going to be running. You knew that he was going to be running for presidency.
And he would have got in, yeah.
And he would have got in.
Yeah.
So that did not, it shocked me, but it did not surprise me. I was very saddened when that happened, but it didn't surprise me. The type of, it could have revolutionized everything. I mean, it could have changed a lot of things. So I was, you know, it saddened me big time when it happened.
Yeah. And it's 20 years ago.
Yeah. Just sickening.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that was, and his wife died and her sister, right?
And she was pregnant.
Yeah. And there, you know, it's interesting too, that one of the airplane seats were missing.
I'm just going to say that. Yeah.
So that's a very interesting. Yeah. So there, and we can go into a whole nother story on that. That would be a good one too. That would be a good Truth Mongers. So you guys can check that out and do your own investigations on that. It's a real shame though. Real loss. But I think that the Majestic 12 is more, like you said, it's more of a clearance. I think that there's a lot of things that, you know, there is national security. I don't mean that, but I think that there's a lot of things that we could probably trace back. I mean, even to the even the statements about the grassy knoll, everything else, it's all gone. And you've done the research on this, but even further back than that, when you're looking at the cover up with Roswell, you're looking at, I mean, all through the cover-ups, and then we didn't even know about the Majestic 12 technically till the mid 80s, right? Until the paperwork came out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty remarkable. It's really remarkable.
It's interesting that the FBI would look into it and come out with it's a complete hoax, which it may be, but it doesn't seem right to me. You know,
It doesn't surprise me,
I
though.
mean,
What else are they going to say? Hey, oh yeah, you're absolutely right.
there was an author, a ufologist called Bill Moore, and he was quite well respected in the UFO community.
Yeah.
But it turns out, and he confessed to this, he was given information. He was given information by the United States Air Force that were turned out to be false to put into the mix, and he was passing information on the people he was meeting to the United States Air Force intelligence. So he was getting, he was like a double agent, I suppose, for them.
Do you think he was set up? Do you think he was set up to get that false information? I mean, that could be too.
No, he did it. He did it willingly. He confessed. He confessed that he was doing it.
Wow.
And he's not welcome at these places, these convention things anymore, these talks anymore, because he sold out.
Yeah. So Carl throws a stir into the mix. You got to do that, Carl. I think the FBI looked. Hold on, sorry.
Well, go ahead.
I think the FBI looked at some of the documents that were released on the early internet. Those probably were faked. Well, I mean, it could be. I don't know. The Cutter paperwork though looks it's pretty convincing. Convincing. The paperwork is from the era of the 1960s. The burn marks are all consistent with being on a pile of papers being in a pile that burned through. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting things that couldn't have been. It just seems there's just even the ink that they used is what the FBI and the CIA were using at the time. I don't know.
One thing I came across researching,
right.
Again, I'm trying to get out of this research business. It's just
sure.
It just kills you. Was a couple of memos from
that's really bad. That's it. That research thing. That's really cool. That's really bad. Really bad.
A couple of FBI memorandum from J. Edgar Hoover talking about Roswell and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So not just talking about it. I mean, talking about it. And to the existence of, and it's
Paul says that George was the name of JFK Jr.
But you know why it was called George?
No.
Because he was pointing the finger.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now. Yes. I was young when that came out, but yes.
Now there is a photograph of a guy, a supposed police officer, outside the Texas School Book Depository 10 minutes after the shooting in Dallas.
Yeah.
And crazy people in the community think it's George Bush. Now, this guy looks more like
George Bush Sr.
Yeah. This guy looks more like me than George Bush.
Yeah, but George was on. George was in the time frame. He was there.
He was there. He was involved in the CIA and all that kind of thing. But
right.
They're trying to pin him to standing on the steps. And it's not. It's clearly not. But Stevie Wonder could see that it's not him. Okay. They're just trying to tie him in. All these people were there, but George Bush is interesting because he's right in the heart of all this, because he denied being in the CIA forever.
The CIA.
He was the CIA.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think he got to be director in 1976.
His family ended up funding, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, helped bank the Nazi movement in Germany. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, come on, give me a break. I don't care what your political stance is. Bush was whatever.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, if it wasn't so scary.
You're right. It's and I'm not saying. Listen, all I'm saying is I'm not saying that there was that he shot Kennedy or anything like that. I just think it's very interesting that all these things kind of, all these players are in this menagerie of it's really ironic. It's very ironic.
There's a lot of people who were involved in that shooting that weren't sort of directly involved, as it were. It's called turn of the head approval. Hey, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Turn of the head approval. And that's what a lot was going on.
Sure.
One of Angleton's paranoia was the fact that he was in charge of the what's the word? what do you call it, the defection program that Lee Oswald was involved in.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yep.
I think there were 27 US Marines defected to Russia, the Soviet Union, at the same time as Lee Oswald.
Wow. And he was the only one that was, well, I mean, he was a scapegoat. That's why he had to get, that's why he was shot. I mean, you look back on it now, it's like it's plain as day. I don't know how you know, whether it's Oliver or not Oliver Stone, whether it's the movies about JFK or anything, you know, of recent years, of you thinking that or not. It's amazing the amount of information that's there.
When Kennedy was shot, I was nearly 9.
Yeah.
And I can remember it happening. I can remember my mum and dad crying about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
but
devastating.
But the main thing I remember is on the Sunday when it was evening here on the news.
Yeah.
Was it was live on American television when Lee Oswald was shot by Ruby. It was live. It was the first live murder on television.
Yeah. Well, it was forever changed. I mean, the world was changed after both those incidents. It was never coming back. You know.
But when it happened, when they showed it, my dad said, I can remember my dad said to my mum, they've done that to shut him up.
Yep.
And at that point, he was the assassin, you know.
Well, and we were back to the thing where they didn't question, they being the silent generation, that didn't challenge the authority. The story was this. They didn't challenge it. That was it. And that was close the book. And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
But it's interesting to note, while we're not talking about Majestic 12, but there were 2 books published before the Warren Report. The Warren Report came a year after September, after the November, and there were 2 books published before that's probably true. Listen, I know more about US history than I know about British history, I'll tell you. You know, I could name you the last 15 presidents, but I couldn't name you the last 15 monarchs.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, Majestic 12, though, is the starting point. That's what we were discussing. And it runs, like I said, it runs deep. There's a lot of things here that it's across the board. There are generations of people that have been affected by decisions that were made by a group.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless if it was conspiracy or assassinate, whatever.
The thing is you got to remember that because what happens in these circles, these intelligence circles, is that because so many people know so many people, all operations and things seep into the next one, even though they're not involved. So the files become redacted because it's not necessarily what you're looking for. It's something else they don't want you to see.
Right. And
which is why Lee Oswald had to die. It wasn't so much the fact that he didn't shoot anybody. It was the fact that he knew who did, and they knew other people, and they knew other people, and what were they doing? That's the thing.
And that would quiet other people up too, knowing that this guy just got killed. And you're like, okay, well, I'm next then if he's, you know.
He's surrounded by 70 police officers.
Yeah, right. And here the camera pointed right at the cameraman, just happened to be right there.
And the detective is the only person in the North American continent with a tan suit on to silhouette him as he came out. You watched the film. The film.
It's tragic. It's just so.
And there's car horns going off saying when he's at the door and when he's level and all this.
Yeah, I know.
Of stuff.
Come on. I mean, yeah.
It's just. It's.
So, do you think that MJ12 is still around?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. It has to be. It has to be, because if you've got that level of clearance, why would it be any less now? When obviously in the 50, 60, 70 years since Roswell, isn't it? 74 years.
Yeah.
Those guys were embedded in that mountainside in that spacecraft. They can't have been the only ones who've got here.
No. And they were saying we even talked about Roswell being 2 ships that crashed at Roswell. Yeah. So Sarah says history classes didn't go over much further memory. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You're going to have education systems are different. I know that, public school, I actually like public school better than I liked parochial school. I felt I learned more in public schools, but I took the initiative to learn more. You're going to have different, depending on what state you live in, what country you live in, you're all going to have different they're going to teach you differently, but they're not going to, they're going to have a status quo of what you're going to, here are the blinders. They're not going to show you everything. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
I think it depends on the individual. Nobody showed me anything. I went and found out. I just got
I think you have to have that.
You know, I ended up going to Dallas when the House Select Committee on Assassinations were there. I was interviewed in Dallas on the radio.
Yeah.
So it's just an interest, it's just getting interested in it.
Right.
And I'm not interested in everything. It's just that this stuff
either.
just fascinates me. Well, that's because I was brought up on Americana, because they were going to the moon, and all this science fiction stuff. I was brought up on that, and I just love all that American comics. Jack Kirby, like we've said.
Sure.
All these influences on me are very American, and I tell you, a lot of people on Facebook think I am American.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
No, you're not. No.
I'm not even Welsh.
No, I know you're close to Wales, but it's okay. Well, and I mean that's sometimes though you need to have a person that's away from it to know what it's about, and that's a very very true to life. Do you think Eisenhower had a lot of regrets?
I think he did. I do. Yeah, I think
that's Frankenstein moment.
Yeah, I think that's why he made that speech. Listen to that speech. Listen to what he's saying.
It's haunting. Yeah,
and he's telling you, and this is 1960 or 61, early 61. He's telling you, and then you've got the Kennedy. I don't know which speech it is, but he talks about covert agencies and all this kind of stuff and
agenda.
Yeah, and all this stuff going on. He's telling you, but he can't say it outright.
Right. Well, but that would have killed him. That would have been it.
Well,
I
so
mean, if they had killed him, then that would have changed everything too, because then people would have known. Okay, well, obviously they shut him up too.
Well, Nixon was running, I would imagine doing somersaults because he thought he was going to get in. There's no way Kennedy was going to. I know the Joe Kennedy had something to do with that election and all that kind of underhand thing, but Nixon was. I won't go into that, but Nixon was. He thought he was the next president. That's why the Bay of Pigs went ahead. Mm-hmm. I think they told Kennedy the day before or something silly like that. He didn't know, but he wouldn't allow U.S. Air Force to back up the troops who landed on the beach. Plus someone had told Castro anyway, so he knew they were coming on that day anyway. So he was ready anyway. Was
there anything else with the original M12 that happened in their lives? Okay, one of them committed suicide. Anything else happened?
Not as far as I can see. No, they were all just died as natural causes, I suppose. Nothing mysterious as far as I could find.
Interesting.
But I do think it's a generational thing, like you've said. I think it's it must be there now. It must be there now.
A handoff. There's got to be a handoff somewhere.
But I find elite. I find it interesting that it's 12.
Well, I mean, it's okay because you're back to the there's 12 apostles. I mean, go on and on. I mean, there's probably a methodology to it. There's got to be, maybe there's 12 levels. I mean, I don't know.
It could be.
I don't know.
It could be. It would be interesting to talk to the presidents since then and people involved since then, but they wouldn't be able to say anything anyway. But I'm talking about Obama and Donald Trump and Jimmy Carter, all the presidents. Not Reagan's dead, isn't he? Clinton and people like that. Because did Clinton say he was going to release some papers? I know he released some JFK papers, but he was going to release some of this stuff, and he didn't do, as far as I know.
I think that he's got. I mean, again, I think that there's only so much they're going to be able to do now. I mean, especially now that he's not president anymore.
Yeah.
I think that there's only certain things he's going to be able to do. I don't think that they're ever going to have a full disclosure president. I just don't think it's going to happen.
No.
If they do have full disclosure, it's going to be his full or her full disclosure. It won't be the full disclosure. It'll be their perspective on it or what their committee releases.
This gets back to what I was saying before about the plausible denial. They probably can't give a full disclosure because they don't know. that
Right.
really don't know.
And I think it's by design. That
And
we
they
know
put-
that there's a group that knows what's going on, but
Yeah,
it's probably never going to see the light of day.
they probably don't want to know either. I'm not sure whether I
Well,
would.
right. They've already got enough on their plate. I mean, you see the pictures of when people come out, not Trump necessarily, but you see the pictures of other presidents, and you see the age, how much they've aged in 4 years or 8 years. Or my
Yeah.
God, I mean, some of those, even Obama, I couldn't
Yeah,
believe it. I
yeah,
couldn't believe the change in him.
yeah. I mean, when he's there in what 2008, he's really young and good looking and alive and vital.
Yeah.
And then when he finishes 8 years later,
Yeah,
he
there was.
really looks like an old man.
Yeah, it does, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. So I can't imagine that. I mean, the Book of Secrets probably has so many pages ripped out of it. You know, I'm sure that there's a few. I'm sure that there's a few chapters that aren't filled in. You know,
Have you ever heard of that
for
book?
good reason. For good reason. But
Have you heard of a guy called Victor Marchetti?
no.
Nothing to do with MJ12 as far as I know, but I wouldn't mind rereading this book because I wasn't into MJ12 at the time. I don't think it was released then. I don't think we knew about it. But he released a book in 1974,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence, and it's about that thick. It's about 1,000 pages, but there's only about 200 pages that have got any type on it. What happened was the CIA, he worked for the CIA, and he left and he was going to write this book. They told him he couldn't write the book, so he wrote the book. And they told him that he wouldn't be allowed to publish the book, so he published the book. But what happened was the CIA took the manuscript, so to speak, to court, gave it to a judge, and the CIA highlighted what they didn't want in it. The judge highlighted what they couldn't publish. And but they printed the book. They didn't just print 5 pages. They printed how thick the book would have been, and it just says, and then Richard Nixon said, and then there's a blank 25 pages, and they've all been redacted, and then it says, and then they went home type of thing. You know what I mean? There's all this stuff in it, but they printed the book the size it would be. So the CIA bought every copy of the book, first publishing, made him a millionaire overnight. So the publisher just put it out again as a second print. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a great book not to read because there's nothing in it because it's all been taken out. But and the other stuff that they wanted taken out, but the judge allowed, they put that in bold type. So it's in regular type, then bold type, and then a blank 50 pages, and then we're back to bold type, and then we're back to regular type.
Man, ultimate censorship. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
But-
that's I mean, that's
I
a
would
very.
I would imagine that he would know about MGL12. I'll have a look at that. That's piqued my interest on that one.
Yeah.
Victor Marchetti.
So who do you think now, just speculating, who do you think now is MJ12?
Oof. I would imagine that because of all this stuff that's been going on since '84, Reagan was president then, wasn't he? And Bush was vice president, wasn't he?
Right.
I would imagine that those levels of clearance have gone up a couple of notches.
Sure.
And that the president would want to know more, because if he's carrying the can for this at any point, he'd want to know. But who they are now, I don't know the names of any generals or anything around. But it's always the ONI or CIA people, isn't it? So that those people who know these things, because they're the ones in charge of it, I guess.
Yeah.
They're the ones passing the information around. So.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The same people, let's say the same rank.
Yeah.
In the military, I would have thought, they need to know. Look at Area 51. There must be several generals and admirals who frequent that place. They must know.
Sure. And then there might be ones that are just not named. I mean, the no names.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and then we do have to have it. I have to say, I'm not denouncing it or denouncing MJ12 at all. I just think they've got to have it because it could cause a tremendous amount of shock to the system. I mean, in that defense.
Well, this is what you said before about national security, and I believe in national security. We need national security, and I can understand why a lot of these things are kept, out of the public domain. And I agree with it.
And I can understand, yeah.
But there are certain things that we won't get to know because it would be a shock to the system, like Kennedy being murdered. We would, when we find out who actually did it, we might not be happy with that, and we don't know what's going to happen. Well, we do know what's going to happen, and so from that point of view, you could argue that they're right to keep it from us, but depends who's keeping it from us.
Right. And for what reason or what agenda or whatever. That, yeah. I mean, so it's a double-edged sword. But I think that they do have to have agencies that are that do protect. I don't know if they have to, I was watching a video on Ollie North, and he was in Congress. He was talking, he was being deposed or something. And he says that I believe that we should, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says, I believe that we should have a portion of the government that is that can run covert operations without any type of backlash, without any type of prosecution.
Black operations, yeah.
Right. No prosecution, nothing. They should be able to do it no matter what. They're above the law, blah, 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 for their own national security. Okay.
But that depends who you're aiming at.
Right. Literally. Thank you. Right. Who's at the end of the barrel, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're civilian and you're, civilians are targeted, well, that's a problem. I mean, that's a definite problem. There's some definite concerns there. But if a higher ranking official is saying that, that's like, well, okay. I mean,
you see, that falls down because who are they to play God and say, oh, well, we remove this person? They could remove them just for spilling the coffee on them. These people, if they have ultimate power, what did they say? Was it power corrupts and ultimate power corrupts absolute power corrupts absolutely?
Yeah.
So it's I can see his point, but I'm not sure whether it is a totally good thing because, like you say, above the law, do what you like.
Yeah. Well, right. And who watches the watchers, right? So yeah, that's it's a good discussion. MJ12, I'm sure is a entity still. I'm not. Again, does it affect me? I think it affects me not knowing how it affects me. I think that turning a blind eye is something that we wouldn't know any different because we didn't. Even now, people didn't know what MJ12 were. In some cases. So I don't know. Does it change my life? Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Well, does that guy? What was that quote from someone? It was. I think he's talking about the Nazis. It was like first they came for the Catholics, and then and I didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Gypsies, I didn't say anything. Then they came for the infirm, and I didn't say anything. Then the next day they came for me.
Yeah. Period.
Because he's the only one left.
Right.
So that's what you've got to be careful of. It's all depressing.
It can be. Well, and it's it seems like it's run by maniacs in some areas. Yeah. So how are we nuts? We're just questioning it, or is it?
No, we're not nuts. No. We're not doing it. We're just asking. We're not doing it. It's not my fault.
I'm going to leave that up there for a second and let you read that.
Above the Law, good Steven Seagal. Like I've not seen that one.
No, I haven't seen a Steven Seagal movie in 20 years. Not that
I was surprised when I saw him recently, what he looked like. I mean, I know we're all getting old.
A little, he might be MJ12. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of things, though, that I think, when we look at a lot of the conspiracy theories and that we can always shed some type of light on it. But again, I think it gets some of the UFO people and that get a little bit insane on certain things. I mean, really off the mark. And maybe that's the truth of it. Maybe it's so off the mark that it is true. I don't know. But
I think that about David Icke.
I think that David probably has experiences that he believes are very true. But I don't know.
He used to read the local news on my television at 6 o'clock just before the main news.
Wasn't he? He's a footballer too, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Rugby or soccer? What was it?
Soccer. Yeah. Then he used to read the soccer news.
He's got some compelling argument. I'll tell you, it's compelling. people
Have you,
buy into it. It's
have you,
compelling.
have you seen what Carl's put there?
No, what do you say? When we bring him here, we'll have him get him naturalized citizenship, and we'll have him start running. I don't know. There's the thing that scares me is that there's got to be both sides of everything. There's got to be two sides to it, right? And if there is this type of covert operation that's going on and silencing people for whatever agendas, that's always concerning. But I don't think that that's. I really don't think it's to the mass hysteria that were the conspiracists bring it up to. You know what I mean? I know that you wrote a very awesome book. I'm not saying that. And I know that there's some very compelling evidence for a lot of different things. And I'm sure that there is some truth to a lot of it. But I don't want to, scare people into thinking, oh God, this MJ-12 is going to come get us, or, it's not like that at all. I'm just thinking that it's, it's a legitimate, it's something that's there. It's been documented. So
well, if you look at any counterintelligence program has worked when the public believe the information. And how often does that happen? It happens all the time.
Yeah. I mean, so who's to blame? Are we to blame because we don't challenge it?
Because well, yeah, but there's that fantastic, I think it's Shakespeare when he says, treason shall not prosper, for if it prosper, who shall call it treason?
Right.
And
exactly.
That's brilliant. That's Shakespeare. That's 500 years ago.
Yeah. And that's the truth. I mean, that's about it, man.
And then you compound that with the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Exactly. If we
Julius Caesar, he was murdered by people around him.
Right.
Like Kennedy he was killed by the people around him.
Yeah. So
no such thing as a lone nut.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, I hope we shed some light on MJ-12 and some of the conspiracy around them. You can find a lot of this on YouTube, and a lot of that, some of it's far-fetched, some of it, you believe what you want. But I think that there are some agencies that are good here in the world that do have best interests involved.
It's only a few people in any of them. Yeah.
And we have to have security. We do.
We do. Yeah.
How does it affect you? Does it affect you? Is it interesting for you just to have a conspiracy mindset? That's fine too. That's not what the Truth Mongers is about. It's just to bring out some ideas,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just reading Monster Fan real quick. Just bear with me for a second. After the last 2 years, the controllers know that they can do absolutely anything, and the people will blindly obey like sheep. Wow. Okay, that's dark. But yeah, I can see where you're going with that. Here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. That's a very, very true, Dan.
Pete Townsend.
Yeah.
Won't get fooled again.
Right.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really have I don't know. There's a lot of things that can scare people, but I think that there's I don't know. There's a lot there to learn from, though. And learn what not to do. If it doesn't feel right in your life, then don't do it. Treat people with respect and try to, I'm not saying you have to cover up everything or have full disclosure on your life or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But
I tell you what I've come across in my life is from a personal point of view, when I was boring everybody to death in the 70s when I was reading about JFK, that was my talk in the pub. They were talking about going to see the grandma and going on holiday and having what they had for lunch, and I was talking about political assassinations and wars and space program.
Real uplifting person to have at the party. Yeah, great.
Interesting. I'm interested.
No, you are. Hey, no. So
do you want to talk about your grandma's?
Yeah.
Whatever, or would you want to talk about an assassination? But what happened to me was that I used to, I didn't talk about it all the time, but they knew I was reading about them.
Sure.
I was traveling. I went to Dallas, and all this.
It interested you. It completely interested you. You're an author, of course.
But a few years later, when all the stuff I was telling them, they were going, "How do you know this? How can you possibly know about this? What do you know about anything?"
That's
And then a
very
couple of
English.
years later,
That's very British. That's so
yeah, and
British.
then a couple of years later, when it was coming out on the television, which is true, tells the truth all the time,
Sure.
I'd mention it in the pub, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, we knew all about that." I said, "Yeah, because I bloody told you,
Yeah.
but you didn't
Yeah.
believe me," and they still didn't believe me when I said that.
Yeah.
Because they're right.
And
Who am I? I don't know anything.
they're probably still in the pub.
They're probably
You
still
know.
in the pub. Yeah,
So I mean,
I've not been in
I've
the
run
pub
into a
for
lot
3 years.
I've run a lot of people like that in my life, and it is a mindset.
Yeah,
And I consider them sleeping, or they're
yeah.
just turning a blind eye, and that's okay too.
Well,
There's
well,
nothing wrong with it.
that's most people, because most people say to me, "How can you travel to these places you've been to?" I say, "Well, what I do is I get on a big aeroplane and go.
Write
That's
the
what I
check.
do.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't go to the pub every night like you do. I save me money and I buy an air ticket and I go. Oh well, but they want to talk about beer and peanuts and things like that. Well, I'd rather fly to Easter Island and talk about that.
Right. Well,
But
and
there's
that's
but there's nobody I can talk to about it because I don't know anybody who's been.
yeah. I'm
So
I'm gonna go eventually.
I hope
You
so.
know.
Yeah, it's
But
good.
you've taken opportunities, and you've had
Yeah,
advantages that some people don't have, and that's good. But you've also earned it, and that's one reason why I respect you a lot, because you've earned the stuff that you've achieved, and
yeah.
that's not an easy thing to do in life. A lot of people are given things and they don't realize that they've been given opportunities,
The
and you know
opportunity
what?
is the same for
You
everybody.
get an opportunity to drink a beer in the bar and just stay there. That's fine. You had an opportunity to do that. You just chose not to. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Um,
yeah.
and we all run into people like that throughout our lives. I've had people that are complete idiots. A complete idiot. They have opportunities after opportunities. They don't take them, and their life is fleeting. It's
And
gone, and
and do you
they
know what
lose
else
out
they
every
do?
opportunity. You know,
One time I went in the pub Friday night, and the guys were there, and they said, "I've not seen you for weeks. Where have you been?" And I said, "I just got back from India."
yeah.
Now they believed me, but they didn't ask me what I'd done.
What happened? Or yeah, or
So if somebody says to me, "I've just come back from wherever," I say, "What was it like? Why did you go?" And that's how dumb they are. If I'd
well,
have said,
their experience isn't. They're not really dumb. They're just ignorant to the experience. I mean that you know what I mean. There's a huge distinction between being dumb and being uninformed.
well,
And
believe
it's a
believe
very
me,
thin there's a very thin line. I'll
but
give you that.
believe me, these people straddle it. They straddle that line.
What time, Sarah wants to know what time is it there right now? What is it? It's 8 o'clock. It's
It's
1 o'clock there.
it's
One something.
1:10.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. MJ12, check it out. See what you guys think. I mean, don't go too far down the rabbit hole because there's a lot
No,
there, and
because it'll
it'll drive
it'll
you
kill you.
bonkers.
Yeah,
And you know what?
you'll
By the
end up
time
you'll end
by
you'll
the
end up writing this if you do that.
yeah,
This
and by
kind
the
of
time
stuff,
you read it all, you'll think Jesus Christ was part of MJ12. So
And
just
then when they come on here and tell us, we'll say, "We told you this last week."
yeah, right, right. But hopefully you guys can look at it from a little bit more of a common sense point of view now. And check out,
Yeah.
some of the names that were on that list that Glenn was awesome about. You know a lot more about this than I did, but you also lived in that time frame. MJ12 was
What
just
do you
a
mean by that?
well. I mean,
I know I'm only 170 years
you're like,
old.
you, they just invented color lately, right? It's you were
Oh,
living black and white back in those days, right? They were
well,
just
the
you just
telly
got
was,
most of
but
your you had a
the te-
television, right? You had a
television
television
was.
when you were a kid.
Yeah, of course I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
It's black and white though.
yeah.
Okay.
Only because it was broadcast in black. Well, yeah, it was black and white. It was broadcast in black and white.
Okay.
Do you know what the first British program filmed and broadcast in color was? You won't know. You'll never guess.
Doctor Who.
Close. Stingray.
Oh.
Jerry
Yeah.
Anderson.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
1964.
What was I was going to say? Keeping Up Appearances. I thought maybe you'd be watching that or something. Anyway, Benny Hill. That would have been good. Benny Hill in color. The first show in color. That would have been great. Benny Hill was, but
Benny Hill's good, whatever colour he's in.
yeah, there's a lot of PC problems with Benny Hill, but yeah.
Oh, I don't care about that. It was just humour. It's called humour. It's lacking. It's lacking these days.
Okay, and Donna said I gotta watch out and be careful about the black and white TV cracks. Okay, all right, got it, Donna. I understand. So, but no, very interesting stuff, man. MJ12 is a very interesting subject. It's interesting how it all kind of correlates a little bit. And you can make anything out of anything. I mean, it's just a theory,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that we can bring up these things and
I think
not,
it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting that, like I said, everything touches everything else. The Kennedys and the space program and Vietnam and Korean
and the
War
same,
and all
and
this.
like we were saying, and the same players.
Yeah. Same
And
people.
you make your own decisions on everything. There, anybody who's listening, it's just this is just what we're bringing up. Whether I believe it, I don't know. I think that MJ12 exists. I don't think that they were probably all in cahoots with all the rest of this mess, but who knows? Thank you, man. It's always good. It's always good to have you on and get you riling going. You're such a wealth of knowledge, bro. You're such a wealth of knowledge.
I just make it up.
Yeah, do you?
No. I wish I did.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
I wish I could. I could write something that somebody might buy.
Well, actually, we're going to do that. We're going to show one of the books that people are going to buy real soon. Hold on one second.
Brilliant.
When they mined an area, they put down yellow tape right across that line, see. And if you walked on the wrong side of that yellow tape, you blew up.
Strange Tales 136. I remember it very clearly, and that was my first exposure to Kirby. And I wanted to show it to people.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I'm sure you'll be getting that out soon, right? This will be beginning of the year, you think?
I think it will be beginning of next year.
Excellent. Well, we're going to push the heck out of it once it comes out. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're also talking about Grim 101. Obviously, everybody's exhausted about hearing about Grim 101 book 2, but thank you guys for listening in.
No, they're not.
And we're almost there. Yeah, I'm going to. We're almost there. We're at $2,333. So we're almost there, almost 2,500. So Russell Allen has actually asked me to be on his show. That's why we're going to be cutting short tonight. We'll be on his show about 9 o'clock tonight, and we're going to try to raise some funds and hopefully financially put this thing to bed. So tonight. So I would love for you guys to stop in. Thank you guys for all the support and everything else. Let me show you that Kickstarter campaign one more time, and we'll be right back.
Most of my life I've felt alone, but not here. I suppose living next to a cemetery, your neighbours are always close. It is peaceful and quiet, but not lonely. In fact, since my first visit amongst these graves, I've felt a presence, a calmness that fills the air and surrounds me like a gentle morning mist. That's how I know he is there. It's a feeling of being watched from afar. I wait in silence as well, until we meet.
Love that voice, man. You know her?
I've talked to her a couple of times, yeah.
Man, she sounds amazing, man.
She's great. She's looking forward to doing the audio book.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more after the campaign's over. We'll get that rolling.
Joe's just arrived. You're too late, Joe.
I'm sorry, Joe. You have to watch on the playback, but yeah, definitely. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'm sure you've got some stories you could probably share with us on that
Yeah.
discussion. But
No,
everybody,
he'll just hint at it and say, he'll say, I know a great story about that, but I can't say anything.
Can't say anything about it. But that's okay. That's good. That's Joe. I want to thank Joe too for having me on his show last week. It really helped a lot. Thank you guys for tuning in. Glenn, thank you, man. You're
Thank you.
Man amongst men, good sir. So thank you. And we will talk to you soon. I don't know what we're going to do next week. We'll figure it out. We got some interesting one. If you guys want to, always suggest something we can check out. That'd be great. So as usual, but and we will talk to you soon. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, it's been short, but it's great. Love it.
Okay.
Thanks for doing it, and all the usual things. And thanks to everybody for watching.
Sounds good. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Be safe, guys. We'll talk to you. Thanks again for stopping in.
See you.